What's going on there, everyone? Well, the dictatorial Democrats have struck again in my home state of Virginia. Gotta love what they're trying to do. Democrats seek to outlaw suburban single-family house zoning, calling it racist and bad for the environment. One of the most moronic statements I have heard as of recently. Well, not even of today, to be honest with you, when it comes to the Democrats. You know, the House Democrats and everything are actually thinking about introducing new articles of impeachment. Yeah, we'll get into that later too, because that's ridiculous. But that'll probably be another video. Let's start. This is kind of long, so let's read, because it's really stupid, and it shows how much the Democrats don't care about you, don't care about much of anything except for their little twisted ideological nonsense. But let's get into it. Democrats in Virginia may override local zoning to bring high-density housing, including public housing, communist block housing, to every neighborhood statewide, whether residents want it or not. Yeah, that sounds exactly like what the government's supposed to do, you know? Yeah, whether you want it or not, this is what you're going to do because we're the law of the land. That's your party, Democrats, not mine. The measure could quickly transform the suburban lifestyle enjoyed by millions, permitting duplexes to be built on suburban lots in neighborhoods previously consisting of quiet streets and open green spaces. Proponents of upzoning say the changes are necessary because suburbs are bastions of segregation and elitism, as well as bad for the environment. Okay, explain. How about that? Because I live in Virginia. I live in the suburbs. And I can tell you, the last thing that they are is bastions of segregation, because Virginia is a very mixed, diverse state because of immigration. But I can tell you, everyone gets along. Doesn't matter. My neighbor to one side of me is an older black lady. A very wonderful lady. This woman is just, she's as sweet as could be. She goes to our family's church with us. We have a really awesome time with her and her family. And then to the other side of me, I got an old white man. He pretty much stays to himself. He's really old. He's in his 90s, so he doesn't talk and come out much. But yeah, there's no racism happening here. There's no elitism. We're all a bunch of half-poor country people. And we like it that way. We get along very well. We don't have the problems that these urban areas have. We don't have crime. We don't have just people stacked on top of each other, driving each other mad. But that's what the Democrats like. They like that maddening tribalism thing, you know, where they can pack a bunch of people in the same area, try to get them all thinking the same. That's just one of their ways of working. I don't understand. And when it comes to bad for the environment, you know you know that is just completely false. How would people... It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. When people are not crowded on top of each other, they're not making a mess. They're not causing problems for the environment. Everyone that I know takes care of especially their local environment. We'll say their yards and even their neighbors' yards. We'll pick up trash. If someone on the main road throws a bag of trash out and it spreads across 3 yards, well, one of us, or all of us, will pick that trash up for each other. So the suburbs are a lot better than urban areas. I just hate to tell everybody, but it's true. And it's better for people's mentality. Sorry for the tangent. Let's get back into this. The move, which aims to provide affordable housing, might be fiercely opposed by local officials throughout the state, who have deliberately created and preserved neighborhoods with particular character. Some dense and walkable, others semi-rural and private, to accommodate people's various preferences. Yeah, you know, because here in America, people are supposed to have choice of things, you know, and able to run their own lives relatively free of big government interference. But that's not what the Democratic Party likes. Not at all. They want complete control over your life. because they don't like freedom. We can see it all the time. They're always attacking individual freedoms and liberties. But why they try to mask that by pushing forward different liberties like drug use and all that. They're cool with that because, you know, in their mind, the more you're drugged up, the less you'll be trying to think independently, and you'll just go with the flow. Yeah. But Democrats tout a state-level law's ability to replace "not in my backyard" with "yes, in your backyard," because they don't care about you, the people. House Delegate Ibrahim, Samira, yeah, never mind. A Democrat introduced 6 housing measures, December 19th, coinciding with Democrats' takeover of the state legislature in November, thanks to the suburbs around Washington, D.C., because if you look at the state's electoral map, Virginia's not a blue state. Even though the Democrats are trying to claim that, oh, look, Virginia turned blue. No, Virginia didn't. Look at the electoral map. You will see Virginia's red. It's these suburbs outside of Washington, D.C., and a little bit around Richmond. Yeah, that screw us every time. Why is that? Why does it always coincide with cities? And then Democrats in Virginia are trying to destroy suburbs to try to make them more like cities. Seems to be some type of correlation there. Single-family housing zones will become 2-zoned, Samira told the Daily Caller News Foundation. Areas that would be impacted most would be the suburbs that have not done their part in helping out. No, because most people who get sick of the city move to the suburbs because the cities have failed them. So why would they help with that? The real issues are in the areas between very dense areas, which are single-family zone. Those are the areas that the state is having significant trouble dealing with. They're living in a bubble, he said. When it comes to living in bubbles, that's the Democrats who live in these big, densely populated cities. They're tribalist. You could see that all over the nation. Whenever you have a big Democratic stronghold, yeah, what are those people? Generally tribalized into thinking the exact same thing. That's all they're trying to do. They're trying to make people think the exact same thing by forcing everybody to be in a certain little congregated area. Democrats are really trying to get people out of the rural areas and trying to bring them into the urban areas, which is kind of creepy. He said the suburbs were mostly white and wealthy. That's absolutely not true either. Jesus Christ, have these people drove around Virginia to see what they're actually talking about? I don't think they have, because it's just thoroughly false. And their local officials, who have historically been in charge of zoning, were ignoring the desires of poor people who did not have the time to lobby them to increase suburban density. I don't hear any of the poor people around here complaining about any of this at all. I being one of those poor people, you know, because I think here in Virginia, if you make under $24,000 a year, you're considered poor. Well, guess what? As a self-employed person, I make just, if I'm lucky, right at that. Yeah, you don't make a whole lot of money being self-employed, generally, unless you come up with something really interesting. Or you have people working under you and all that, if you're big enough to start a company like that. But I am not. In response to a question about whether people who bought homes in spacious suburbs have valid reasons, not based on discrimination, for preferring to live that way, including a love for nature and a desire to preserve woods and streams, he said, caring about nature is very important, but more dense a neighborhood is, the more efficient it is. That doesn't even make sense. That's absolutely an incorrect statement. It's less efficient the more people get there because everything gets convoluted with everyone else's opinions and ideas. Don't give me that shit. That's show me proof. How about that? Just show me proof. He said if local officials seek to change requirements like setbacks to make it impossible to build dense housing areas in areas zoned to preserve a nature feel, if they make setbacks to block duplexes, there'd have to be a lawsuit to resolve whether those zoning provisions were necessary. He wrote on Facebook, because middle housing is what's most affordable for low-income people and people of color, banning that housing in well-off neighborhoods chalk up to modern-day redlining, locking folks out of areas with better access to schools, jobs, transit, and other services and amenities. Well, how about this? Instead of trying to dictate everyone's life, how about you try to make the access to schools, job, transit, and other services and amenities more available, instead of trying to screw with zoning and stuff? Seems you'd have an easier time working with schools, jobs, and all that. Come on, man. Yeah. Come on. Work within the areas that are having the problem instead of trying to force those problems into other areas. How about that? You ever think about that? You ever try to, solve the actual problem in the area where the problem is instead of just moving the problem somewhere else? But that also seems to be a very big democratic thing to do. You can see it in places like New York City where they got a problem with homeless. So what do they do with the homeless? They give them a year's worth of rent and put them on a plane, train, or bus and send them to somewhere else to get rid of their problem. You see, this is a democratic thing. When there's a problem, let's just send that problem somewhere else under the guise of racism, discrimination. Come on. This is nonsensical. I will certainly get pushback for this. Oh, yeah. Some will call it state overreach. Yeah, it's dictatorial. Some will express anxiety about neighborhood change. Some may even say what? Oh, all right, this sentence is written screwed up. Some may say that the issue simply doesn't exist. I think that's what they meant to write there. But the research is clear. Zoning is a barrier to more housing and integrated communities, he continued. What research? I've noticed that you say research is clear. But I've also noticed that you didn't include said research. Is there a reason for that? If you're going to state research, you need to post the research. Have a link there. For someone who disagrees with you, can try to see your point more clearly. But I don't think the research is there. He tweeted Sunday that would include public housing. Important question about new social public housing programs. Where are we going to put the units? Under current zoning, new low-income housing is regulated and underinvested neighborhoods, concentrating poverty more. Ending exclusionary zoning has to be part of a broader housing reform, he said. I'm all for housing reform, but when it comes to what y'all are trying to do and the way y'all are trying to go about it, no, that's a big problem. You can't just come in here and say, hey, citizens, this is what we, the government, are going to do. You have no say whatsoever. No, that's not how we Americans are set up to do things. You start telling us what to do and start making us, as a government, try to do something, things are going to get real ugly real quick. And things are in Virginia already getting real ugly real quick when it comes to the Second Amendment, which I've talked about that quite a few times. Tim Hannigan, chairman of the Fairfax County Republican Committee in one of the areas Samara represents, said that urban Democrats were waging war on the suburbs. Agreed. This could completely change the character of the suburban residential life because the urbanization that would develop, he told the DCNF. So much of the American dream is built upon this idea of finding a nice quiet place to raise your family, and that is under assault. Very true. I'm always telling people on this channel, everywhere that I talk, get out of cities. Go to the suburbs. You will enjoy your quality of life will go up sky high. And no, it is not expensive to go out to the suburbs. That's a common misconception. You can find very cheap and affordable houses, single family houses, in the suburbs. Fine. I mean, it's not hard at all. But another problem that I see with a lot of people is their own sense of entitlement screws them very bad. Everyone feels that they deserve and have earned so much more than they actually have, you know. And I've victimized myself in that way, thinking, you know, feeling sorry for myself at one point in my life. Like, man, I feel like I should have more. But you know what? I wasn't doing more in order to earn more. You know what I mean? Self-accountability. This is a power grab to take away the ability of local communities to establish their own zoning practices, literally trying to change the character of our communities, he said. It's to me, a state government overreach. He said the suburbs were not equipped to handle the increase in traffic, and inevitably it will just push people to places where they feel they can get away from that. They move to West Virginia, to their little plot of land. And that's true. You're just going to... it's going to be like a plague of locusts running through the state. You're going to start pushing people out of the suburbs. You're going to build these communist blockhouses everywhere. And that's going to push the suburban people out. They're just going to keep on going further until they find their little peace and quiet again. It's pretty sad that the Democrats will not allow people to have their own little peace and quiet. That's not how they want, because the Democrats truly feel that big government is the only type of government. People aren't smart enough to make their own decisions for themselves. And you could see that by their own words. Look at what AOC said. If people aren't going to do it, you need to step aside because there's a new leader. You know, just get out of here with that. Minneapolis, liberal s-hole, became the first city to eliminate single-family zoning in December 2018, after a push by progressive advocacy groups promoting equity. Lovely. Austin, Texas, and Seattle soon followed suit. Austin, Texas, a liberal stronghold in Texas, and Seattle, which Seattle's got all kinds of problems. But those cities were amending zoning codes that have always been the domain of local governments. Oregon passed state legislation blocking local government single-family zoning in July, CityLab reported. It quoted Alex Baca, a Washington, D.C. urbanist with the site Greater Washington, saying that single-family zoning is a tool for wealthy whites to maintain segregated neighborhoods. These people are so racist against white people that it's blinded them to reality. Disgusting. And that the abolition of low-density neighborhoods is necessary for equity. Equity's nonsense, people. CityLab acknowledges that residents might reasonably desire to keep the neighborhoods they love the way they are, but said that implementing the law at state level makes sure that those concerns can be more easily ignored. Yes. By preempting the ability of local governments to set their own restrictive zoning policies, the state policy would circumnavigate the complaints of local NIMBY homeowners who want to block denser housing, it wrote. While he implied, that suburbs are prejudiced, Samir himself has a history of anti-Semitic comments, including saying sending money to Israel is worse than funding the Ku Klux Klan. God, you gotta love these type of progressive Democrats, because they are truly just ignorant morons. I'm so sorry that my ill-chosen words added to the pain of the Jewish community. You're not sorry, or you wouldn't have said it, or felt it. And I seek your understanding and compassion as I prove to you our common humanity, he said in February. Sure. He interrupted a speech in July by President Donald Trump in Jamestown, Virginia, and said, "You can't send us back. Virginia is our home." Unfortunately, he was correct. I'd love to send him back. His father is Jordanian refugee Samira, who authorities banned from the U.S. for a decade after the September 11th, 2001 attacks, in part because of his membership in the Muslim Brotherhood, the Chicago Tribune. reported in 2014. Well, that checks out. This post was updated with comments from Ibrahim Samira, so that's good. I tell you what, this is what we're dealing with here in Virginia, and it goes to show that the Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party of old. It is not even a healthy party. It is a party in which seeks to take all of your individual liberties and rights away. It seeks to take our local government's rights away. All they want to do is become true dictators. That's the biggest problem with the Democratic Party, it seems, nowadays, is ever since the progressives have moved in, it's not about real quality and happiness and making sure everything's equal or anything like that. No, has nothing to do with that. They've become racist. They become really racist because all of their arguments end up in white people bad, white people elitism bad, this, that, and the other. And it's like, the only ones perpetuating whiteness and white elitism is this false narrative that the Democrats are pushing forward, that that's what's happening. That's exactly who's pushing this belief of white anything, is the Democrats. So I don't understand, because we on the Republican and conservative side, yeah, we tend not to try to think in terms of race at all, because that's a toxic way of thinking, you know? We're all Americans. That's how we need to think as Americans, not as black Americans, not as white Americans, not as Hispanic Americans. No, because once you're an American, you're an American. Race, religion, creed, color, none of that matters. But the Democrats don't seem to see it that way, because they are inherently racist for some reason. I don't get it. But it's all nonsense. This is what the urban elites around, Democratic elites around Washington have done for us in Virginia. Yep. The liberal dictatorship is trying to be in full swing. It's going to be up to us, the people of Virginia, to fight back against this. These Virginia Democrats are starting something. They're starting something that could be way bigger than just Virginia. It's getting a little sketchy out there, people. But I'd love to hear your comments on this. Whether you think I'm just overreacting. You know, the Democrats aren't trying to be dictators and this, that, and the other. You know, even though they're trying to take all the other opinions out of the equation completely, they can just truly run everything the way they want to. Or, yeah, whatever. This is just so crazy to me. So crazy. Here in America. But what can you do? We've been seeing this for the past few years. This is the route the Democrats want to take. So, we're just going to have to fight it at all costs. But as always, like, share, and subscribe. I will catch y'all on the flip side.